Why does Sam look like Steve Irwin, and why is the best looking model in the whole game this random fish at the docks of Minas Tirith? That knowledge is beyond me, but if you stick around, you will know how many enemies we kill in our playthrough of one of the worst Lord of the Rings games, Aragorn's Quest, on the Nintendo Wii. And consider subscribing if you want to see more kill count comparisons between iconic video game characters. In Aragorn's Quest, you play as the Ranger and future King of Gondor. Oh, you also play as Frodo. No, not that Frodo, but Sam Gamgee's son, Frodo the Hobbit. In between the 8 main missions, you meander around Hobbiton, learning tutorials for the tutorials. Kinda pointless, I know, but I get that this game is geared towards younger kids. The question is, do you get to kill anything as our little hobbit friend? Of course. Any and all wild animals must be shot, maimed, or killed. This is a fantasy setting, after all, and farmers need to grow their crops, and anything that flies could be a servant of the enemy. Quick note, I'm not counting any of these ghost kills in the Shire because they don't seem to be real enemies, unlike the flesh and blood moles that we hack to pieces later. While I won't mention it again, the only kills you need to know about from Hobbiton are the aforementioned moles and a few birds. Now, the main game follows the story of the movies while inserting Aragorn into every major plot point. After a brief prologue at the Black Gate with a Balrog thrown in just for good measure, you enter Bree looking to round up the hobbits to flee to Rivendell. Unlike the source material, you are physically assaulted by ruffians in the city. Aragorn is hardly defenseless though, and has a surprisingly fleshed out moveset for what boils down to a simple hack-and-slash children's game. Besides swinging your sword up, down, left, and right, you can also stab, shield bash, parry, and even light enemies on fire. For reference, I would place the depth of the combat in between the wagglefest of Zelda Twilight Princess and the more accurate motion-based sword fighting of Zelda Skyward Sword. But considering Skyward Sword required the Wii Motion Plus, I have to give the game props for what it allows you to do. If you collect enough blueberries, you can unleash a super powerful attack, or spend them to buff your allies. Speaking of allies, I was pleasantly surprised to see they actually damage enemies. How many other games, I'm looking at you LEGO Star Wars, do your companions spam enemies with attacks that literally do nothing? While extremely useful, this makes counting kills nearly impossible, because I can be fighting orcs over here with no idea how many have died to my friends over there. I did my best, but yeah, it was rough. After fleeing Bree, you are swarmed by goblins in the wilderness. Unsurprisingly, these malaria-infested bugs were far more dangerous than any goblins we fought. Upon reaching Amon Sol, driving off but not killing the ringwraiths, and meeting up with Arwen, we slew our first troll, which I will sadly admit I died to on my first attempt. Don't judge me for failing the first level of a children's game. Level 2 has you wandering the hinterlands, look it up kids, of Rivendell, fighting wolves, spiders, and goblins that are waylaying travelers arriving for the Council of Elrond, culminating with an assault on the city itself. While Aragorn is generally viewed as a heroic figure, his reputation takes a massive hit here when he pulls the Anakin Gambit and kills the spider younglings. On today's show of Kill Count Guesstimation, we investigate how many spider eggs are in a single nest. Careful analysis of the footage, enhance, led me to believe there are roughly 20 eggs per nest. Over the course of the game, Aragorn sets fire to 21 of these, bringing the kill count of unborn baby spiders to 420 innocent creatures. Now you tell me who the real monster is. In Moria, we are introduced to the hideous Gollum, which by comparison, makes the film's depiction look downright cuddly. Also, can we agree that the Balrog is the Rancor of the Lord of the Rings universe? A super cool monster that is just overused in the games. Fanghorn Forest, I literally have no notes on. It was fine, with the highlights being teaming up with an Ent to destroy some enemy camps. Rohan is where you get your horse, and what a cluster that is. It allows you to move much faster, which is nice when tramping around the barren wasteland of this country, but you can't use any of your equipment on your horse except your sword. Well, unless you count this ridiculous spear charge where the real enemy is the awkward camera angle. I think the horse combat is kinda garbage and is a step back from something even as basic as Twilight Princess. But this level had a much more pressing issue. How would they treat my girl Eowyn? As you may have noticed, some character models are somewhere on the spectrum of unrecognizable to abhorrent abomination, so how would they render this iconic hero? Actually, that's maybe the most normal character model I've seen in a while. Good job, game. Also, talk about a glow-up for King Theoden, am I right? But why do all the citizens of Edoras look like zombies as they flee the city? This game's character design is just so inconsistent. Helm's Deep raised the most kill count questions. Each siege tower we destroy clearly has 6 orcs on it. The movies depict numerous enemies in siege towers at Minas Tirith, but I'm just going to work with what the game gives me. So I'm adding 6 orc kills per siege tower plus 1 troll, who you can see pushing them, since I'm guessing he was crushed when the towers are destroyed, which adds another 35 kills over the course of the adventure. The battering ram is another question mark, with 0 hints, since no orcs are visible around it, but I have to assume this is not an electric vehicle. You know what that means. It's time for Kill Count Guesstimation. Based on the size of the ram compared to the orcs next to it, I'm guessing at least 10 are pushing it, and are all killed in the ensuing explosion. Pelennor Fields has an interesting flow. You start by jumping off the Corsair ships and fighting your way through the docks, making sure to pay respects to the gorgeous random fish. You cut a path through the city of Minas Tirith before leaving to kill some Oliphants that are rampaging towards the gates. Once again, it's time for Kill Count Guesstimation. The Oliphants here have giant platforms on their backs, and based off the movies, I assumed they would house the driver and a decent amount of troops. However, I painstakingly pored over the footage, and I just can't seem to find a single soldier on the back of any of them. So, should I assume that there are troops up there, or go with what my elven eyes see? Perhaps controversially, I chose not to add any additional men to the final kill tally. It's at least plausible that these Oliphants lost all their men and are simply stampeding in the direction of the city. We finish up the campaign at the Black Gate, which is a giant arena where you fight waves of enemies. Hilariously, the level still needs to meet its quota of hidden collectibles, so they are just in plain sight around the edge of the map. Once again, no idea how to count enemies here, just doing my best and guesstimating a ton. You distract Sauron long enough for Frodo, no, not that Frodo, to destroy the ring and usher in a new era of peace. So what was the cost of life required to bring about this new age? In total, as Frodo, Aragorn, and friends, we killed 37 birds, 10 moles, 70 ruffians, 1,043 goblins, orcs, and urukai, 513 spiders, 47 wargs, 36 wolves, 8 oliphants, 2 queen spiders, 38 trolls, 3 urukai captains and champions, and the mouth of Sauron, bringing a grand total to 1,808 enemies. The kill count of the goblins, orcs, and urukai alone would have put Aragorn in the top 3, but add in all the other enemies, especially the spiders, and he is comfortably in first place as not only the King of Gondor, but also the King of Mordor. With only the 8 main levels and the limited exploration in Hobbiton, I was surprised he made it all the way to the top, and honestly, it wasn't even close, with the top 3 being rounded out by Michael Ford from The Conduit, and James Bond from GoldenEye 007. Even if you don't agree with the addition of 420 baby spider kills, he would still claim the top spot. I guess sometimes to throw down an ancient evil, some heads need to rule. Make no mistake, this is a bad game that I had a lot of fun playing. Let me just touch on the bad first before I mention why it was snubbed for Game of the Year. The graphics are atrocious, and this is coming from someone who loves the Wii and all of its muddy visuals. The motion blur is insane, the character models based on the movie's depictions are the stuff of nightmares, and the environments look like a bowl of pudding. Additionally, if you're not on board with the combat and setting, it can start to feel very repetitive. Yet, despite these obvious flaws, it does have its merits. For one, as previously mentioned, the combat gives you a lot of tools and options. You can absolutely blast through the game, waggling your controller like an unhinged wizard, casting spells, but if you want to slow down and engage with the mechanics, they are deeper than I expected. Searching out each level's collectibles actually feels rewarding, since they increase not only your own damage and defense, but that of your companions too. On top of this, while not narratively interesting, the side quests give you useful upgrades and gear. There's even a nice quality of life ability where you hold down A to see where to go next, meaning you can figure out if you're heading towards the side quest or the main path, which is really convenient. Even though they butcher some aspects of the story, characters, and world, I have a huge soft spot for the IP, which also helped me to put up with the crappier parts of the experience. Overall, I don't recommend Aragorn's Quest for most people, but I guess I just like bad games. And thanks for checking out the video.